Shakopee Public School Board meeting on January 26th. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Bird.
Here.
Alice. Here. McKeon.
Here.
Romanski. Here. Swanson.
Good evening.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. So we will move ahead with consideration of the agenda as presented. I don't think we have any additions or changes. No additional items. So I'll accept the motion to accept the agenda as presented. So moved. Second. Second. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as presented, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion approved. We've got the agenda. So anyone who's taken a chance to look at the agenda, you'll see that tonight is just one agenda item for the entire evening. This is a significant night for the Shakopee School Board, for sure, and for the Shakopee School District and for the community as a whole. That's in recognition of that, we're going to focus the entire meeting on the one agenda item, which is the first reading of the proposed referendum for the Shakopee Public Schools. Superintendent Thompson and I, Rod and I, will be sharing a presentation tonight that we hope will set the stage and provide the background and context for the proposal that you're going to see as we get towards the end of the presentation. Once that is done with the presentation, I will accept a motion from the board and a second to approve the first reading, and then I will turn to the board members to make any comments that they would like to make at that time, after which we will seek to take a vote to approve that first reading and then close the meeting. I want to make everyone aware, in case you're interested, that the board, the administration, we have all of our building principals, we have our cabinet members. We will be available after the meeting should folks want to have dialogue or questions. Okay. So with that, Rod will start us off.
Thanks, Reggie. One of the things that we hope to do is be able to paint a picture of the history of the district, but we're not going to spend all of tonight doing that. So we're just going to hit some of the high points, and the high points are those that we've shared kind of universally as a community. So the first thing on our PowerPoint is that to recognize that Shakopee is a growing district and that we have a long history of enrollment growth, K through 12, and that it is also important to know that if you go in our district, throughout our district, all of our buildings are at or near capacity. It's also important in the season or the time when you're going out to referendum to recognize and acknowledge that we have a very supportive district. In the past 12 years, in fact, we've built 5 new schools with your support and the community support. And also it's important to note that residents support our schools and our students and are very proud of our schools. I think we heard that theme a lot during the last campaign, that there is a tremendous amount of pride in our schools. And then lastly, we and our students are very fortunate to have this type of a supportive community. We know that with referendums, even in the best of times, they are very difficult to pass. And without a supportive district, we would not be nearly in the place that we are today as a school district. And we're very appreciative that our community continues to support us. It wouldn't be the full picture unless we talk about March of 14, the last referendum, where our community voted down the referendum to build a second high school and ease that enrollment crunch. And there's a few notes that I want to share in terms of this presentation. And I think it's also important to note, you'll hear some percentages throughout this evening, right around that 60% mark in terms of the folks, how they voted, how the community voted on various factors, especially as it pertains to 1 high school and 2 high schools. So the first thing I would point out is in this election, 63% of the people voted against the proposed referendum the last time, 37% were in approval. And that was really odd. In fact, it's the first time in 20 years that the community didn't support that type of a referendum. And I think that'll have something to say with our future. As leaders, we also knew that at that point, for the sake of our students, that failure is not an option. So we were compelled to begin the journey of listening and to move this district forward on behalf of our students. We knew that one of the things we didn't have to do is we didn't have to kind of look in the magic 8-ball. We were able to look right at the students in the seats. The students are here, they're easy to count, and it allowed us to say, to show our community just how packed we were and how the increase in student enrollment actually is projected to get worse in the near future. Also, in response to the 14 failed referendum, our administration put a tremendous amount of work and our expertise into looking at all options and making sure that we truly understood when we worked with our community and took the time to understand what was it that our community was asking for. We knew we had to engage our community. One of the things I'm very proud of our school board and our administration, we didn't handpick a select group of people who all thought like we did. We took the time to seek out, invite, and engage with all sides of the issues. And so the folks that maybe you normally think in an election or in a campaign that would align to our way of thinking, in fact, the loudest voice at times were people who didn't think like we did. That made for a better process, it made for better public engagement. Our goal simply was to develop a plan that works for our kids and to be supported by the community. And I'm here tonight to tell you we listened. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Board Chair Reggie Bowerman to talk about the process and our history.
All right, thanks, Rod. So what I'm going to do the next several slides is, on behalf of the board, I'm going to try to take you through a little guided tour of where we were, what we went through, and how we got to where we're at tonight. So I'm going to rewind the tape a little bit, if you will. This is intended to offer the context and the background for the ultimate proposal that I'm going to end the presentation with tonight. So as Rod alluded to a moment ago, in light of the referendum, the last referendum, we knew that we needed to listen. We needed to listen broadly, we needed to listen closely, we needed to listen more. And so we put a plan in place, we being the board, put a plan in place that was 4 key elements to do that, to listen to a broad group of the community. We, after the referendum, conducted a post-referendum survey, which I'll highlight in just a moment. We put a series of teams together from community members so that we could get input from the community. We then conducted another survey, one that perhaps you may have participated in yourself, a non-scientific community-based survey based upon the options that these teams brought forward. And then we did a final step, which was a professional home survey that gave us a statistically significant modeling of our community. So we put a conscious plan in place to help us do that listening that we're talking about. And you'll hear that refrain multiple times tonight. So let me offer some highlights of those elements. If you could say the last referendum was a clear first chance to listen, this was our second chance to listen. And that was, we commissioned a post-referendum survey right after the last referendum. And the purpose of that was to dig a little deeper into the whys. Why did people vote the way they did, both in support and in opposition? We needed to have more than just the actual data, the 63-37. Why did people vote the way they did? Why were they thinking the way that they were thinking? And as you can see on the slide, we had 1,300 people complete that survey, which was very nice. And consistent with what we heard in the referendum itself, we had a strong opposition to 2 high schools as presented, 60% to 40%. So it was very consistent with what we saw in the election, and then we got more information from the survey itself. I think it's important to note that in that survey, and you again may recall if you took part in this, in that survey we had an open-ended question that said, why did you vote the way you did, for or against? And it's pretty important to note that there were lots of reasons given for both sides, but there was no one unifying reason why people opposed the referendum as proposed. There was a lot of different reasons. So the point that I'm making there is there wasn't one magic bullet that, oh, if you just fix this, everything's going to be fine. So we had to take all of that information into account. All right? We then embarked on what ended up being a several-month-long journey whereby we would engage with the community and seek some broad participation and a greater depth of specific feedback for the board. And to do that, we, as it says there in the first bullet, we kind of hit the reset button, as it were. We wiped the slate clean, we started over. And to do that, we put a plan in place to put 4 teams together. One was the Excellence in Operations and Facilities Action Team. It's kind of a mouthful, so I'm going to call it the Facilities Team, if you don't mind. The Guiding Coalition, the Secondary Academic Redesign Team, and the Technology Team. And the purpose of putting these teams together was so that we could engage the public and they could engage us and provide us with the kind of feedback that we needed to build and prepare for what it was that we're now bringing forward tonight. So we're going to talk about those teams and what they did to try to help us understand the student experience and as they viewed it. Right away, we were thrilled with the robust response we got to the call we put out to the community to participate in these teams. We had over 150 people, just Joe citizens, people who volunteered to come forward and give of their time, their energy, and their effort to participate in these teams. And we can't thank you enough for doing that. And it was wonderful that we had that kind of response, particularly on the facilities team and on the Guiding Coalition team. Then we had the academic and the technology teams that were really more made up of the teachers, the staff of the district, the educational experts, and they were tasked with looking at academics and at technology. And then as those teams started to meet, which was in the spring and continued all the way through, just completed actually in December, the board, the cabinet, the administration sat in on every single one of those meetings. And I don't mean all of us at every meeting, but we had significant representation at every meeting. That was yet another opportunity for us to hear the dialogue, the discussion, the questions, the debate firsthand. Another chance for us to listen. So let's talk about the Facilities Action Team and what they did. This was about 75 people who came together over a series of many meetings, many hours, many hours of effort that they put into this particular activity. And their intent, I guess I liken them a little bit to a leadoff batter. We asked this group to come together and give the rest of the teams something to react to, including the board. That's what we asked them to do. They were tasked with looking at literally reams and reams of data and information. Everything from prior enrollment projections and how that panned out, future enrollment projections, building capacities, what land is available to Shakopee, what are the costs to do buildings, amenities, you name it. This group was given lots and lots of information. And I can say that because a few of us were on the facilities task force back in 2010, and it was very similar to what that group went through. So I know the kind of effort that they put in, and again, we're very thankful for that. So that group went into that, and their specific objective, as you can see, was to create options to meet the next 10 years of space needs for this district. They had a very clear and a very concise objective: create options for the board, ultimately, but the community to react to. And they did that. Did a nice job of that. And Rod alluded to something a moment ago. I didn't know he was going to say that, but it's part of kind of my own notes and thinking tonight. I think it's important to note that the Facilities Action Team and the Guiding Coalition, for that matter, was made up of a cross-section of our community, and it's made up of people who were both opposed and favoring prior referendum. And that was very conscious. We kind of took all comers, but at the same time, we didn't want to have an echo chamber. We didn't want to have a bias one way or another. It was important that we had full and complete representation of the community and of all opinions. Despite that, the Facilities Action Team, despite having differing opinions, was able to come together right away, and they could agree on 3 things. They could unify on these things early on in the process. I think it's important to acknowledge, which was all options would be on the table. We'd just come off of a referendum, but they all said all bets are off. The slate's wiped clean. Everything's viable, if you will, at this point in time. Nothing was ruled out, nothing was ruled in. A second point is that everyone agreed, and I think everyone in this room could agree, we were focused, they were focused, on the needs of our students. This is not about what the parents wanted, this isn't about what teachers wanted, this isn't about what people's personal preference was. Everyone took that hat off, left it at the desk when they checked in, and put on their community hat. It was about what the students needed. That was the focus. And the third thing I would say is that everyone agreed and unified around the idea that this was a long-term solution we were looking for. This was not a Band-Aid solution that was being sought. It wasn't just, well, let's just get some room for the kids who are meeting in halls now. This was a 10-year solution looking to the future. Very important. The other point that I want to make on this slide is that early in the process, the academic team came together, made a recommendation, passed it to the facilities action team, that 9th grade should move to the high school, and that the middle schools should convert to a 6-8 configuration. The facilities action team took that recommendation, they reviewed it, they considered it, and they adopted it. They accepted that. Now this is real important, and the reason it's important is because this all happened in early summer, spring, I think, when that was actually acted upon. This is before they had come up with options. This is before the board certainly came up with the proposal we're going to present tonight. So this was an opportunity for this group to say, we accept that 9th grade needs to be in the hospital. 9th grade needs to be in the high school. And so consequently, when they then were going about the process of coming up with options, they now had an anchor point. They had a reference. So all of the options that they then developed referenced back to the notion that high school needed to be including 9th grade and the middle schools would be 6 and 8. And that's real important because that was adopted by them. And as you can see, the board, the school board, formally adopted that recommendation also in the summer, well before we had any proposals tonight. So that became an anchor point for any of the options that were to be discussed after that point. Very important. So what did they do? Some of you were on those teams, so you know a lot of this. That team worked very hard, and they came up with 21 different options for configurations for this district. 21. Now, there was not unanimity on that, as you might expect. And we asked them, we said, well, we can't take 21 options out to the public, so we need to kind of condense this a little bit, and they did. They came together as a group, they pressure tested them, and they came up with 4 that they believed were a fair representation of what that group came up with and represented the spectrum of options that we should consider. Tremendous effort by this group, tremendous effort. The important thing to note, though, too, in this process is that everyone in that group had the chance to chime in, to voice their opinion, and as I said, to pressure test the ideas of the other groups or their own group, for that matter. There were some very lively, interactive, dynamic discussions that we observed, and I think that the folks that you were talking to on the team, they'd say, yes, there was a lot of dialogue, a lot of good discussion. But they came up with 4 options from that group. And if you've been paying attention, which if you're here tonight, it indicates you're somewhat interested, you know what happened next, which is in October, we brought forward to the city a special edition of the Shakopee Valley News. And in the goal of transparency, this was very conscious on the part of the school board to say, let's not play hide the ball, let's not keep those options to ourselves, and we'll debate it and we'll pick one. We wanted to share that with the community. And if you think back to that handout, and I'm going to give a shout out to Crystal, I think you did a fantastic job with that. It had a lot of good information, it had a lot of good kudos from the community about that document. It had a lot of information about what we were considering, the facts we needed to factor into our discussions. It laid out all 21 options in a very brief manner, and then it really explained the 4 options that the facilities action team had put forward. So that was presented to the community, and that was mailed to all district residents. And that's important to note, folks. This was not just to the subscribers of the Shakopee Valley News. It was not just to the city of Shakopee. It was all of Shakopee residents in the district, all of Private Lake, all of Savage, and all of the townships that were in the school district. So everyone, unless you were trying to avoid it, you got this at your home and you had a chance to review it and consider it. That in turn led to the next survey. This was the community survey. This is the one now when people have the chance to review the options. We asked them, the public that is, and almost gave them, you could say, almost another chance to vote, as it were. But we asked them, what do you think now? What do you think of these options? And a number of other questions that we asked. As you can see, we had over 1,900 surveys completed. Again, we're very pleased with the response rate. If you know anything about market research, really pleased with the levels of response. And in this case, very consistent with what we heard before, you had preference for a 1,600 student addition or expansion to current high school. That came through loud and clear in this particular survey. So the board had yet another point of input. Now let me take a second and a sidebar to those other 2 teams before I come back to the Guided Coalition. Remember we had the secondary academic team and the technology team. They were running in parallel with the facilities team and with the Guided Coalition team. They were running at the same time. And they were tasked by the board, very specifically, to do something. We said, you need to go out and you need to come up with 5-year strategic plans for how we can take Shakopee, education in Shakopee, just to the next level. You need to come up with 5-year plans on the right things to do, convince us of that so we can move ahead. And let me tell you, that was also difficult because we told these groups, JP is an example, and Nancy in the back, we said, you have to do this, if I can use the term agnostic, to what the ultimate design is going to be. Because remember, this is in the summer and the fall. We didn't know what proposal was going to come forward. So we said, do what's right, do what's the best for kids, bring a plan forward, but it needs to be able to be workable in pretty much any format. That was a little twist that we put on them, and they did a great job. We also asked them, as the slide alludes to, that they couldn't lose sight of some key things. The first one says that they had to have what we call the relentless, or not relentless here, but a focus on, I would say relentless focus on excellence. This is not about mediocrity, it wasn't about being average, it was about always being and striving for excellence in our district. It's our mission, we stated this as a district, that we would produce kids who are college and or career ready, whatever path they choose, that they were looking for ways to integrate career readiness skills, not just the old rote memorization that maybe a few of us had when we were in school, or basic math. It's how do we incorporate real, true, real-life experiences. We asked them specifically to transform the way education is delivered by the incorporation of technology. That was to be built into the plan, not just the technology plan, but the academic plan. And there's the relentless, that's the word I was thinking of. Always keep your sights unfocused and focused on student learning. So in that context, they did that. And part of that process was reimagining what academics could be in Shakopee. And the product of these two teams created those 5-year plans, and those plans have been adopted and approved by the school board. Again, separate from whatever model was going to happen, we're going to move ahead with improving education in Shakopee. And they did a great job in doing so. Again, as that first bullet says, focusing on college and career ready, whatever path the kids take. We want to make sure that they leave Shakopee schools, hopefully knowing where they want to go, but more importantly, prepared to do so. And I work in the secondary education field at the University of Minnesota, and that's what we hear all the time. Kids coming either not prepared, or the workforce saying, we need better prepared employees. What can we do as an educational group at Shakopee to do that? We asked them to focus on that. The second bullet says we intentionally and purposely plan that there would be real-life career experiences built into their high school day. Into their high school day. That's moving education forward, and that's what those plans do. And very exciting to me, and I think the rest of the board, is this next point, which is curriculum is going to be entirely redesigned, and it's going to be centered around 6 areas of interest where the kids pick themselves. What are they focused on? Where do they want to go? Arts and communication, business and entrepreneurship, engineering and manufacturing, health sciences, human services, science and technology. It's going to be changing the framework of how education is delivered at the secondary level for sure, even into the middle schools. And some could say it's going to dribble back even to the elementary level, which is kind of hard to imagine, but it truly is. The board accepted those plans, and we're already, the wheels are turning, and we're already moving ahead. This is exciting stuff, folks. And that's separate from the referendum. This is exciting stuff. Okay, back to the timeline. The Guiding Coalition, another great group of folks, about 75, at least at the beginning. They began to meet at the same time the facilities team did, but their charge was very different. They were asked to take the work product of the other teams, so the facilities team, the academic team, the technology team, and they were asked to digest all of that, and almost like a master jigsaw puzzle, let's make sure the pieces fit together, or that they don't not fit together. Because the last thing you want is this team says we got to do this, and this team says we got to do that, and they don't mesh. That would be a problem. So they were looking for consistencies, they were looking for overlaps, they were looking for interactions. Their job was to come back to us as a board with these statements of consultation, basically counsel us. After all of that input, what would we have you do? Get your community members in. And they did that. And we listened. We got all of that in December, and it was yet another input for the ultimate recommendation you're going to see tonight. The last step in that process, again, perhaps you got a phone call, was in light of everything that preceded it, we commissioned a professional phone survey The group we used was out of Indiana. They were called Center for Community Opinion. This is what they do for a living. They're focused on education, surveys, referenda, and that sort of thing. And they conducted a professional, statistically significant phone survey. They completed 409 interviews, and I say interviews, I mean relevant interviews. What I mean by that is, I don't know how many phone calls they have placed, 600 or 700 probably to get to, maybe more than that, to get to 409 completed. But those interviews were completed because they were representative of Shakopee. Whether you talk race, gender, do I vote, do I not vote, am I a parent, am I not a parent, socioeconomic status, the 409 are representative of this community, which gives validity to the results. That's important. That's why we did it. So with those results, we had yet another point of input. You've seen this, the Shakopee Valley News reported this, and perhaps no surprise, if you saw the data, once again, the 1600th edition or expansion was the preferred option in this professional phone survey. But we asked a lot of other questions in this, and several of them were quite telling to us. I want to highlight a couple of these. One of the things we heard was that Shakopee, as a community, was very supportive of a referendum to deal with the space issues that we're facing. Very supportive, highly supportive. I think folks understand that we have a space issue. There seems to be unanimity on that. And the way you address that, for the most part, is passing a referendum to build more space. People seem to get that. Another point is that there was an incredible amount of support for technology in the schools. Improving it, enhancing it, integrating it, etc. That came through loudly. Another point was that there was also, I won't say unanimity, but it was pretty close, behind improving security and safety in all of our buildings, no surprise. And then Rod alluded to this a moment ago, the center out of Indianapolis, or Indiana, I guess, that did this, they have comparative data. And we were very pleased, very proud to see that the community perception, comparatively speaking, was quite good at Shakopee of the public schools. Quite good. So on its own, in an absolute sense, it scored very well, but compared to other districts that they've done work in, they were quite impressed. So that bodes well for what we hope to do as a community moving forward. So that brings us to where we go from here. We listened, we listened, we listened some more. That's not been the familiar refrain tonight, but it was time for a decision. And the school board took that very seriously, and we knew that we needed a solution that works not just for our kids, but obviously something that the community will support. Those two go hand in hand. So as a reminder of all of the things that we had to put in our recipe, if you will, we had the prior referendum, we couldn't ignore that, we had to acknowledge that. We had the 4 different action teams that met. We had the 4 different options that came from the facilities team. We had the statements of consultation from the guiding coalition. We had the 3 different surveys, it only says 2, but we actually had 3. We had the post-referendum survey, we had the non-scientific survey, we had the phone survey. We had lots of informal conversations, literally up to today in my case, where we're talking to our neighbors, our friends, the community, civic groups we've been in front of, coaches here in the district, social media, certainly are comments that we pay attention to. We had all of those inputs, and we also had what our experts, that means the people that we turn to every day to educate our kids who do this for a living, we had the insights and the advice and the counsel of the educational experts. So we had lots of input into our decision. And the last slide that I'm going to share before I turn it back to Rod for just a quick second is this. And this one I'm taking a little liberty with. Everything I've presented thus far is factual, it's all happened. I'm just reiterating the path we've been on. I'm taking a little liberty here because I've tried to represent my colleagues on the board in the lens that we were looking through as a board when we came to that decision on what we were going to bring forward. And we said that whatever plan we bring forward, in light of everything we've been told, has to do these things. We expected it to, we demanded it to do these things. Bricks and mortar, for example, have to optimize that academic redesign that I talked about, that we're already implementing. It can't be contrary to that. It needs to provide for smaller learning communities and these areas of interest that I highlighted. It's going to help individualize and personalize education for kids at Shakopee. That's really going to be unique, folks. It has to foster that technology-rich environment. We're expecting that. That's the world in which we live. That's the world in which our kids live. And it's certainly the world in which they're going into. Education is being delivered differently now, and we need to incorporate that. It has to provide for increased opportunities to participate, whether you're talking academics or whether you're talking co-curriculars. We've said it before, but our mission is to develop students, but to provide an excellent education for kids so they leave our doors prepared for whatever comes next. It has to do that. The plan has to support that. It has to foster an environment that continues that sense of belonging, that connectedness, as it says. That's important. We don't want kids feeling lost. And lastly is the bullet I kind of call the wraparound. It's very important to this group that it's not just the bricks and mortar you build, it's also the wraparound services, the staff, the support services, that individualized attention that keeps kids engaged, keeps them feeling belonging. That's the lens, folks, that we look through as a board. I'll turn it back to Rod now to talk about the recommendation that the district brought forward to us, and then I will follow up with the actual results.
Thanks, Reggie. So as an administration, you can see they're all here tonight. That's the kind of dedication that you get when you hire the best, and we really do have the best. I look at our principals, I look at our cabinet. These are the finest people you will find anywhere. We also had a journey to come to resolve with what's best for our students. And so, as Reggie talked about, we've been working on this recommendation for quite some time, and we listen to our community. We listen to the coaches. We've listened to our teachers. We've listened to our staff. We've met with the student council. The list goes on and on. You need to keep listening, and we did. The other thing that's a bit unique, and Reggie talked about this a bit earlier, is that with our group, we are counted upon in this community to be the experts. And our plan tonight that we're recommending is based on a lot of data, a lot of reflection, and it is a unanimous, united vision by our entire administrative team, which I think is very important as the ones that are in charge of the educational system in Shakopee. District leadership spent quite a bit of time reviewing and reflecting on all of our action teams, all of our planning teams, all of our facilities group. We had to make sure that when we bring a recommendation to the school board, we want them to know we've done our part in making sure we've followed best practice, we've listened, and we've heard our community. Our cabinet meets weekly. We have two pieces of what we do. One is above the line work. The above the line work has basically been our referendum. And we put our minds together about how do we create the best plan that works for the community of Shakopee and the students of Shakopee. We've had 2 board retreats. The board chooses when they want certain members of the cabinet. When I say cabinet, what that is referring to is our directors of like instructional technology. John is our assistant soup. We've got Nancy with teaching and learning, Mike in finance, Bob in community ed, Julie in special ed. I'll always miss someone. Scott Hare, how can we miss Scott Hare? His birthday, I think, is tomorrow, but anyway, I regress. I would want the community to know that we have been fully engaged to come up with this plan. Tonight is what we call a first reading. It's not all that unusual, but we do take pride in knowing that as a board, our governance model is that we take an administrative recommendation, we use our administrative recommendation, we present it to the school board. The school board then tonight in their governance model will take the recommendation, and then I think what Reggie will be talking about shortly is what he would like from the board is that sometimes board members choose to weigh in on individually what their journey was, and then as a board, they have the opportunity to listen to the recommendation tonight, and then individually, they will act individually by casting a vote, but then as a group, they will act as one voice, is what you may hear us talk about on February 9th. And that means that it is our our hope as an administrative team to be able to make a recommendation that the board can unanimously get their support behind. Because in a referendum, it's critical that, that we have that one voice speak. And as a community, I would want you to know that that final determination is on February 9th. So tonight is a first reading, and I'm going to present to you now the administrative recommendations on what we believe is in the best interest of the students and the community of Shakopee. So we are administratively, we are recommending that, that we offer up 2 questions on the ballot. The first question on the ballot would be to build an addition to the existing Shakopee High School, and the second question would be a technology levy, and I know Reggie is prepared to speak to that in a bit. Question number 1, that is the addition to the existing high school. We've talked about it, that we move our 9th graders up. That makes a building of 9 through 12. We move the 6th graders to our middle schools, grades 6 through 8. We convert Pearson 6th grade center into an elementary school, thereby offsetting the pressures that we're currently experiencing in our elementaries. We would recommend that we take what is considered to be an already good safety and security in all of our buildings. We add the extra to make it great in all buildings. And I want to stress all buildings. And I think recently you've seen a lot of the technology levies and other kinds of levies that have been out there addressing such things in the communities. You'll see various types of options, and we'll be able to explain more of that administratively as we move forward. And then lastly, you know, I looked at the photographs, and you can go back to almost like snapshots in time, even as I looked at the faces in the audience, and I remembered the conversation about not settling. And I remember the conversation being held at the table that if Shakopee would become one of the largest districts and largest schools in the state, that we need to upgrade and we need to improve so that we build a competitive edge in academics, athletics, the arts, and activities. And we as an administrative team are recommending to the school board that we do just that. We improve and upgrade our outdoor facilities. The question 2, so this would be a separate piece. Question 2, we're offering up that we would like the school board to consider a levy that would help us increase access to technology for our students and our staff, would include the training, which we all know is so incredibly important as we go down the era of working with new technologies and how to improve teaching and learning. And then lastly, the support personnel that are needed to run a system that is going to be our size. So we would make those 2 recommendations.
So there you have it. You look up at the screen, you can read it faster than I can say it, but here is the culmination of months of labor by a lot of different people, hours and hours of effort by literally hundreds of folks, and it's boiled down to what the board believes is the right solution for our kids, our families, and our community at this time. It's in the form of 2 questions. So we adopted or accepted the recommendation of the administration and have framed the questions in that form. Question 1 will be a bond referendum for $102.5 million that will do 3 things. First, it will expand the high school to a total capacity of 3,200 students. It will also improve and upgrade outdoor facilities that are in need. And it will enhance district-wide safety and security. That is the purpose of the bond referendum. There's a second question. That second question will take the form of a technology levy. And that levy will generate $2.5 million each year for 10 years. The funds of which will be used to support that curriculum and academic programming that I've alluded to and the incorporation of technology therein. And over time, it's going to help equip our students, our teachers, our staff, the district as a whole with the technology we believe is appropriate. And you might be thinking, well, what's the financial impact of that? That's what this slide is. It's called the money slide. The ballot questions you can see listed. The middle column shows a monthly estimated tax impact. The right column shows an annual estimated tax impact. And it's important for folks to know that is based upon a $200,000 home in Shakopee as a reference point. So you can do your math from there. But the two together generates, roughly speaking, about less than $300 per year on that $200,000 home. So that would be a tax impact. We think, as a board, that this is a plan that delivers against what we've heard from the community, all that listening we did for the better part of the last year. We believe that it is aligned to all of those guiding principles, those shared beliefs, that checklist I kind of read off, that lens that we were looking through. We believe it is aligned to that. And while it will be one large high school, the building configuration itself, and that is not baked, by the way, folks. We've seen some conceptual drawings. That's going to be kind of fleshed out over time. And I'm quite excited about some of the things I've seen. But the building configuration itself, the curriculum, the programming, is all consciously and purposely going to be designed that we will have a large high school that feels small. That is very, very important to us. Very important, critically important. And to that, we want it to be sure that it delivers the things you can see listed: smaller learning communities, the ability for students to study within their areas of interest and group with students who are in that field of interest, with more opportunities to participate. As we said, that's an expectation. And again, that it has that wraparound, the staff and the support services that are needed to make sure kids feel involved, engaged, and are participating. So what's next? Timeline. Tonight, as a board, we will accept the first reading. We're not approving it tonight. It's the first reading, just to be clear. At the next boarding, February 9th, is when we will seek to get final approval for what you've seen presented. Absentee ballots would become available as early as March 20th, so you can vote early if you want. I won't say often. We're not Chicago. The election, take note of this, put it on your calendar. The election would be May 5th, Tuesday, May 5th. And between now and then, as you might guess, there's going to be a lot of communication and information and dialogue and discussion and explanation, etc. So in summary, as a board, again speaking for my colleagues, we think we engaged extensively, we think we listened extensively to our community, and we think that we're offering a plan that we believe is the right solution in light of what we believe is important and what we think the community will support. It's going to come in the form of two questions. Question one will be the bond question for buildings. Question two will be the tech levy for technology. As I said, the election will be May 5th, 2015. And if this doesn't show we listen, nothing will. We're going to have pretty near all election polling places that would happen in a general election. Not quite all, because we're going to have to combine a couple, particularly in townships. I'm not saying we're Savage. But I think we're having 18 polling locations, something like that. So folks are going to be able to vote where they're used to voting for the most part. Okay? So this is the last slide. This is where I get to say thank you on behalf of the board. This has been quite a journey for everybody. For those for and against the last referendum, for all of the participants of the last 9 months, and the hundreds of folks that have done that. For the community as a whole, whether you've been a passive participant, whether you're tuning in tonight for the first time, however that is, we thank you for that. I want to say thank you to our district staff and our district administration. Rod alluded to it a minute ago, but I don't think it can be overstated that they kept the lights on and the education happening while this referendum noise is all happening on the side. They didn't let it distract them. We got lots of good things going on in Shakopee, and we thank you for that. Thank each and every one of you who do that each and every day. And I also want to recognize it's been a journey for this board. It's not been easy. It's not been a slam dunk. It has not been a simple, quick decision. What we've arrived at tonight took a lot of good, healthy debate and discussion. So all of you in this room, who might be watching at home at some point, we say thank you. We literally got here tonight on the backs of hundreds of people that helped us get here. We say thank you for that. So now, being the old salesman, at a close of sale, we ask for your ongoing support of Shakopee Public Schools, be it renewed or anew, whichever it is. And we thank you for that. So before we turn to the board to make their comments, I will accept a motion to accept the first reading of the referendum as proposed. Moved. Moved. Do I have a second? turn it open to my colleagues on the board. I've done plenty of talking, probably too much. And anyone who feels that they would like to, there's no expectation that you do so, but if you would like to, maybe share your own comments on how you got here tonight and your thoughts. Angela?
I prepared a statement, so I'm going to read this. That way I don't stumble over anything. I first want to thank the community members who have taken time out of their lives and really gave us opportunities to listen to your thoughts and to your ideas. I also want to thank the staff who hit the reset button right away, right after the referendum failed, and they helped us really chart a new course. A large school has not been my preference. However, going forward, I'm committed to moving forward and to helping making sure that all students in Shakopee have a positive learning environment. I'm convinced that regardless of building, the administration and staff can do amazing things and will achieve what we want. During this process, it was very clear to me that the community and staff want our students to have a rigorous education along with opportunities that will allow them to be career and college ready. I believe this plan would fit our vision, and I'm excited to move forward.
You're done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Like Angela, I'd like to thank the community, I'd like to thank the staff. It has been quite a journey. You know, I also prepared a few statements. I'm going to deviate from a little bit, not very much here. I chose to move into public service. It wasn't a choice for me. And I don't think public service is really all that different from choosing to go into business, choosing to be a husband, choosing to be a parent. It really comes down to choices that come from people like this. Let's face it, you just can't be everything to everybody. And you just can't make everybody happy all the time. So we always have to make compromises. The issue that's in front of us, and that we've been faced with for the last couple of years, is how we address our current and the future enrollment crunch for all of the districts, not just the high school, but at the middle school and at the elementary level. This proposal that's in front of us does that. At the same time, we want to continue our focus on our education. We were given some data that really shows us, it compares us to the 50-some districts that we are most comparable to, including the Edina, the Eden Prairies, etc. And of that group, we're improving at a faster pace than every one of them. And we want to continue that. And we even looked and said, gee, well, maybe we started out so far behind that it's easy to improve. That wasn't the case. We started out in 8th position and improved to first. So we want to continue to lead this area in education. And I really believe that one large building would not necessarily be my preferred choice. But I've found many times in life that I haven't been able to have my preferred choice. So you find the next best alternative. Now, we don't know what the best choice is. Only history tells us that. I went to Pearson Elementary at a time when they built it and said, you know what, an open school is the only way to go. It sat on the board that later decided to build walls inside of that building. So history tells us a little something sometimes, and we don't always have that perfect lens to look at the future. I think the use of these smaller learning communities that you heard about, the 6 small academies inside of the school, positions us well to set the standards of education in Minnesota and in the nation. And this is a choice that I can wholeheartedly get behind. Thank you.
Most of you know this has been a long journey for me. Last year I advocated for 2 high schools because I do believe that smaller learning environments are what is best for kids. Almost all educational research indicates that when children are in smaller learning communities with teachers who know them, test scores increase and graduation rates go up. However, our community also places a high value on our history here and our unity. I understand this, also respect it. I know I say this way too much, but my son has a 4-foot saber paw on his bedroom wall. We love being sabers. So my task, as I saw it, was to somehow make both of these priorities a reality. And I had to begin to ask myself whether one was necessarily independent of the other. And through this 10-month journey, and with the help of 150 plus pretty amazing community members, an incredible teaching and learning team, and administration who is absolutely committed to ensuring a high quality education for all of our students, I learned that they are not, in fact, mutually exclusive. We can have both, and we will do it well. The bricks and mortar really are secondary to what happens inside the walls. So with that said, I'm really excited about our emphasis on a high quality curriculum, the technology integration, the academy style programming, and for me, the CAPS Academy, which I'm sure you'll all hear a lot about in the future. When I ran for this board, it was because I was determined to see Shakopee go from good to great. And I see this plan as a way to bring our students and our community together on this path to great.
Correct. I'll try and be succinct, but that's not really my strength. One of the reasons why I was pretty strongly for 2 high schools was the small learning communities. I think that's a pretty common thread here. I'm overjoyed with the innovative plan that our administration has brought to us to preserve area of interest, small learning communities where kids with similar interests will be learning together, and we'll get that personalized education from staff, from administration, from everybody in the buildings. I think it's fantastic. I think we've got a pretty strong commitment to, as we talk about after-school programming, to expand our offerings, to build an intramural program that allows those kids who aren't the elite athletes, who aren't going to be the 10 or 12 people who are representing us playing basketball or whatnot, having an opportunity for those kids to stay connected, to stay after school. So I really want to applaud administration for coming to us with an innovative plan. And then mostly I just want to really say thank you to those who participated. A lot of facilities people were here, a lot of guiding coalition people were here, a lot of administration who was there for all of this, volunteering their time well into the evening, several times. So just really want to say thank you to everybody, and I'm very excited to support this.
All right. I'll start by saying thank you to everyone that's here in this room. This really shows what Rod and Rich were talking about as far as the support that continues, as well as thanking my peers, my colleagues here, because I know we have gone through a growth and development process. Second to none. I'll leave that alone there. For me, and I'm going to go off the deep end here too, probably a little bit, but I'll apologize up front. Context is really critical. I needed to know after we failed this, after this failed, I just wrote down, how the heck did we get it wrong? How could we have been so wrong? I asked myself that about 20 times. I looked at some of the facts. I said, well, we respected the work and the direction of previous boards and facilities task forces. We did that. We kept that history intact. We applied historically true and tried and true processes for passing a referendum in Shakopee. So it felt like, okay, we had our history on our side. If history was an indication of what could happen, it felt like as a 2010 task force, and then moving forward, we had done our homework. So how could it not have worked? And the fact of the matter is what I came up with, and I'll use a shoe analogy. We, in the 2010 task force, we tried to apply a size 6 decision-making process to a size 12 challenge. That's how I boil it down. We had no idea how big this was, how big of a question, and exactly how important it was. We know now, we clearly know now exactly how big it is. On one hand, I could say, well, we messed up and we made all kinds of mistakes, but I'm going to take a step back and say, had we not done what we did, had we not followed the course, we wouldn't be where we're at today. We wouldn't have a dynamic plan with multiple, as Sean alluded to, academies that have a great potential, we wouldn't have what we have right now had we not failed. So I look back to our failure and say, because of our failure, we were able to rise up and find the good. And another, positive, unintended consequence, which I would suggest is a benefit, is that failure got this town talking. People are talking. We no longer sell before the district knows what they're doing. We'll go ahead and do this and pass something. Everybody is open, their ears are open, their eyes are open, and they're actively involved. And what better way to go into this next, dare I say, generation of education than with everybody's eyes and ears wide open, all of us and all of you, everybody's attention it has been commanded. And I think that is a fantastic unintended consequence, or I'll say byproduct, benefit of what we did here. So again, thank you. It was hard to get to this point, but by the same token, I'm really excited that we actually, hopefully, with your help, can actually go forward and see this become a reality. Was it something I said, ladies?
Yes, it was.
There we go.
This process has been an interesting step for me. I think everybody on the board knows that I have a concern. My biggest concern is always with a big school, the students getting lost. And that's easy to happen when there's so many kids in one place. And I have been a diehard advocate for these students, to the point I told Dr. Thompson that if he wanted me to accompany him to the doctor to show him what was causing his pain in the neck, I'd be happy to do that. But I attended a small school, and about 320 students there, and at 13, I had to go to a bigger school, which is small by all standards now, about 1,200. All the kids knew each other. They've been going to school together since they were like in kindergarten. And I was different. And I had to find different ways to get to my locker, to avoid the harassment. I had to take the long way to get to classes. And I felt like nobody cared. I think the teachers did notice me and made me feel like I belonged. So that's why I care so much about the kids that go to the Southwest Metro Co-op, because I know what it's like to feel like no one sees you, or if they do, they have nothing to say nice to you. Why I supported Takata, because I know these kids and I know how I feel, and I have a bond with them. I have faith in our staff. I know that our staff, our teachers, our custodians, our cooks, anybody that works in our schools, I know they care about our kids. That's what has helped me make this decision to do this. The academies, the small schools, so that everyone feels like they have a voice and they have someone to turn to. I know that there are teachers that will be the teachers for students like me, the Nan Barnharts, the Bob Osling, Bill Treekins, the teachers that actually saw every kid, or even the custodian would just smile at somebody to make their day. So this has been a really long, hard journey for me to accept this, but I wouldn't do it if I didn't have faith in our school district and all the staff members who work for the care about their future, because whether it's one building, two buildings, one Shakopee, two Shakopee schools, the thing that matters to me the most is that our kids succeed and have a really good experience doing it.
Thank you, Mary. I think between the initial PowerPoint, I probably spoke plenty, and my fellow board members said it much more eloquently than I, but that presentation was my attempt to represent the board. I'd like to add a couple personal comments. I believe that no matter how you voted on the last time or how you're going to vote this time, one thing that we all share in common is we want to do what's best for the kids. Even if we happen to disagree on perhaps what that is, we all want the same thing. One thing I firmly agree on, I think we all can agree on, is that doing nothing is not an option. It's not an option. And I further feel that the community has spoken pretty loudly, pretty consistently about what it will support. So it's with that voice in my mind, along with the need to move forward, that brings me to this place tonight in my journey. Second, I also firmly believe that the success of educating our kids, as has been said by a number of people this evening, has less to do with the where, meaning the walls, the placement, the configuration, than the what you do inside those walls. If we hire excellent teachers, if we put excellent programming in place, and if we put excellent curriculum in place, we're going to have an excellent educational ride. 1 + 1 + 1 does equal 3, or perhaps synergistically more than that. But I firmly believe that. And the third thing I would say is that I'm excited, not merely accepting, I'm excited about the academic changes and the technological innovations we're going to put in our schools. I'm excited about that stuff. This is groundbreaking, and I encourage you to learn more about that. This is breaking edge, cutting edge stuff. I also believe, part of my reason for support, is that the referendum questions that you saw tonight will put the physical space and the technology in place that will optimize those academic plans. Because let's not kid ourselves, folks. Academics is what we're here for. It's number one. The two mesh perfectly, in our opinion, the plan where we're going to head with the academics as well. So for those reasons, among many others, my colleagues have said it very well tonight, I am highly supportive of this plan to move education forward to Shakopee. So we thank you all for listening to that. At this point, we've all spoken. Unless Rod has anything you'd like to add, we're going to move ahead to a vote to accept. We've had the motion, and it's been seconded. We'll move to a vote to accept the first reading. Sarah, we're going to do this by roll call. So if you would please call the roll.
Bird.
Aye.
Hallett.
Aye.
McGinn.
Aye.
Romancy. Swanson.
Aye.
Tucker.
Aye.
And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. It's unanimous. We've accepted the first reading, and we will look forward to the next meeting on February 9th. With that, we will draw the meeting to a close. I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.